Donald Trump was instructed to appoint 3 senior executives of Goldman Sachs to top positions within his own cabinet. The Goldman Sachs executives include Chief Strategist Stephen Bannon, Head of the U.S. Treasury Steven Mnuchin, and the President of Goldman Sachs, Gary Cohn, who is now the Director of the National Economic Council. In the following clips, you will witness Alex Jones attacking Goldman Sachs for various misdeeds over the past decade. During the time these videos were recorded, Gary Cohn was the president of Goldman Sachs and is therefore responsible for the misdeeds represented in these clips.
But first, I wanted to get into a report that came out. Goldman Sachs rules the world. They're in their little Emperor Palpatine chair. And we have the Goldman Sachs emails where they said, yeah, we're selling our customers absolute you-know-what tea. Ha, ha, ha. Yeah, we're betting against it. I mean, everybody knows it's Goldman Sachs and J.P. Morgan and Bank of America and Wells Fargo that run the New World Order and are setting up the global carbon taxes and have got Warren Buffett out lobbying for higher taxes on the rich. He means the middle class, so they can get that money in a banker bailout. I'm talking about Goldman Sachs, Bank of America, J.P. Morgan, the insiders who are exempt from SEC rules, whose former officers sit in the Federal Reserve and SEC, who've gotten tens of trillions of banker bailout money to back up their derivative crap, because you were bringing up people selling garbage. I'm talking about listing garbage as AAA. That's criminal. And that's what I'm talking about. You know, you were getting off into, you know, on the show that I saw on BBC about Goldman Sachs, you know, making money in downtimes and they rule the world, and they were freaking out about that. So, I mean, that was just them freaking out about the obvious. I was just going further to the point of the rest of the story because you started to allude to how they're selling people toxic assets. Amazing. Now, let's get more into this. Why specifically are you saying, because I agree with your analysis, but from your own research, why does Goldman Sachs rule the world?
As you yourself know, Alex, as many people may know, you know, a lot of ex-Goldman Sachs employees work in the government in the United States. I've already mentioned, a few days ago I was in Ireland, and I mentioned on the show that Henry Paulson, this is a guy who was the former CEO of
Goldman Sachs.
Goldman Sachs.
Yeah, he gives himself banker bailout money and then gives himself his own waivers. You're talking about the revolving door. Please continue.
That's right. I mean, this guy was the architect of the bailouts, and this guy then was funneling all this money to his, you know, to his cronies like Robert Rubin and John Taines of Merrill Lynch, and, you know, they're basically making other guys in the city rich through bailout money. And, you know, the fact is the relationship between the banks and the government is so blurred that it's not really clear who is the puppeteer and who is the puppet.
I was about to say, so in layman's terms, Goldman Sachs, unlike any other group, has regulators internationally in the Treasury, in the private Federal Reserve, in the government, on record, running everything. They go out and package crap derivatives, knowing it's crud, knowing it's bad mortgages. They get it AAA rated as solid gold. They tell everybody it's great in press releases. They sell it to banks, institutions, individuals, to the investing world, to governments, to CalPERS in California, to your school district, to the cop union, pension funds, everything. They know it's a time bomb. They know it's a car that's going to blow up in an hour, but they sell it to you off the lot, knowing it's going to explode and kill everybody on board. Then to make sure it happens, it's already crap, they go out and bet against it to drive it down. Then it goes way down. Then they use government bailout money to come buy it back up, what has value, picking and choosing at literally dimes on the dollar at the bottom, and then they all post record profits and give each other record bonuses. I mean, that is diabolical. And the article goes on to say they didn't just do it for incredible profit. They did it to devastate other financial institutions because they are the regulators. As Goldman Sachs, they have their operatives everywhere. They can then come in and use regulators to shut down and force the sale or liquidation or takeover to other Federal Reserve grouped banks that they're allied with or themselves.
That was so brilliant that I think that you might get a letter or a call from Goldman Sachs asking you to go to work for them.
For that, the question is, will Goldman Sachs get in trouble, or do they have so many of their people in regulatory positions and Larry Summers running the White House economic area that they're not going to get in trouble? Does Goldman Sachs get in trouble for this? I mean, there's not even, that I know of, an investigation being done, and the SEC is filled with Goldman Sachs people. And I remember Paulson, it's in my film Fall of the Republic, he's up there testifying, and they say, you were at Goldman Sachs. How did you, Congressman Stern is asking him from Florida, how did you give your company money? And he goes, oh, I got a waiver from, and he said, where'd you get a waiver from? And he said, oh, I got a waiver from the Treasury Department, from himself.
As seen in these clips, Alex expresses his deep concern for Goldman Sachs' past influence within the White House. But as you will see later, he has no concern for the Goldman Sachs henchmen currently operating in the Trump White House. Like Alex, Trump also berated Ted Cruz for his involvement with Goldman Sachs, as did Trump's lemming-like followers. Let's take a look.
Here's a guy with 2 bank loans that we know of. But the problem is he didn't do it purposely, because what he wanted to do is say, I will protect you from Goldman Sachs. I will protect you from Citibank. And I will protect you for the banks, because I'm Robin Hood, and I'm this wonderful senator, and I'm going to protect you for these banks. And then he's borrowing from the banks. And by the way, he's got personal guarantees, and he got low-interest loans. Got low-interest loans at low interest. And now he's going to go after Goldman Sachs. Doesn't work that way. Goldman Sachs owns him. Remember that, folks. They own him.
You are the problem.
Let me ask you
You are
something,
the problem,
sir.
politician. You are the problem.
Can I ask you something?
No.
Can I ask you something?
You are
Out
the
of all of
problem.
the candidates, name one who had $1 million judgment against him for hiring illegal aliens.
Name one.
Donald Trump is the
self-funded. That's right.
Okay,
Not
so you like
Not you.
rich people
Where's
who
your
buy politicians.
Where's your Goldman Sachs jacket at? We know your wife works there.
In the next clip, we see Alex expressing fear of a Goldman Sachs takeover of the White House, led by George Soros' business partner and Goldman Sachs VP Steven Mnuchin. Mnuchin is the new head of the U.S. Treasury and top liaison to the Federal Reserve.
But this new development is very, very troubling, and we have an article detailing it all from the inside sources, the best we know. Exclusive. Koch Soros insiders attempt to take over Trump campaign. Establishment in last-ditch effort to co-opt New York billionaire. A major effort is underway to co-opt the Donald Trump campaign by infiltrating it with Koch brothers, George Soros-like operatives. Inside sources have exclusively told Infowars.com. Yesterday, it was revealed that Steven Mnuchin would become the Trump campaign's national finance chair. Mnuchin was an investment professional with Soros Fund Management, LLC, and spent 17 years at Goldman Sachs, so he's a Spectre alumni. So when I'm covering this, it's not to go, hey, let's make hay out of a Goldman Sachs, Soros-connected people, Koch brother connected, got the trifecta going on here. Let's just point it out and let's watch it.
Listen as Alex talks about being most concerned with the optics of Donald Trump's involvement with Goldman Sachs. Not the fact that Trump is surrounded by Goldman Sachs, but how this relationship might look to the casual observer.
But I liked the nationalist bent of Donald Trump. And now, we have New Yorker magazine saying Ted Cruz's Goldman Sachs problem. And so Trump has got his people bringing in Goldman Sachs people and Soros-connected people to run his finance system. My biggest issue, I guess, is the optics of that. If Trump's going to criticize Cruz for that and Hillary, then what's he thinking? And if he's just tuned in and you're saying, okay, then what is it, Alex? Is it a big deal or isn't it? I war game openly. I wear my brain on my sleeve. Quite frankly, I don't know what's going on. It smells. I don't like it. I have a nauseous feeling, okay? And I'm going to just stop right there. But we need to see what Trump does now with the optics of this, because he definitely doesn't want to start taking Goldman Sachs money. It's one thing if you hire somebody that's been Soros connected. Soros knows how to run campaigns, and Goldman Sachs. That starts ringing alarm bells. But if you take Goldman Sachs money, I think I'm going to have a heart attack.
In the next clip, you will witness the most amazing lie ever told by Alex Jones. In a lame attempt to smooth over Trump's connections to Goldman Sachs, Alex decides he will now portray Goldman Sachs as the good guys, and therefore helpful to the Trump presidency.
And as I always said, well, let's go look at Bannon and Mnuchin and one of the other people. All of them have been against globalism. All of them have tried to expand cheaper housing. All of them have tried to have fairer trade deals here in the United States. And all of them were on the inside at the highest levels and watched it happening, and for decades have been speaking out against it.
I guess Alex forgot about the decade he spent trashing Gary Cohn, president of Goldman Sachs. But don't worry, Gary was a good guy all along. He's actually anti-globalist. Alex, you are pathetic. Alex won't even say Gary Cohn's name. Instead, he calls him one of the other people, hoping the viewer will not take time to research the fact that the president of Goldman Sachs, Gary Cohn, is now Trump's top economic advisor.